where did your love of football come from?
It was actually a very special story. My mom was a football player as well. She played at the highest level back then. It was not as big as now, and even there was not even a proper league when she started. And she also played for the national team. So I was sitting on the bench when she was playing, so yeah, I could not go around it, and so the love for the game was there when I was very young.
In order to grow the game again, the business of the women's football on the long term, clubs are treating women's football as an extension of men's football. Do you think that harms the women's football development in terms of business?
Yeah, I find that also a hard question, but because in the end, I think how we are existing now, it's also because of the men's clubs. We are using their commercial brands, their fans, maybe even. But I think we can separate it a bit more, like focus on the women's side more on a different audience and on a different way of presenting your women's team. Um, so yeah, I think it helps us definitely because I think without them we would not existing right now.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode on Football Business TV. This one is for the women's world in association with Celtic Cornish Brewery, as usual. But today, I am joined by a person that I call the General. Yeah. For me, she is my general of the women's world. Without further ado, I'm happy to be joined by Claudia von Ten Heiligenberg. I hope I didn't even scratch your name in a Dutch way as much as possible. Claudia, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I know you didn't, but I'm very used to people not pronouncing the name as it should be, but it's fine.
Really?
Yeah, it's not the most easy name, of course, as you noticed right now. It's a very Dutch name, so yeah, I will not
Well,
judge you for that.
oh, thank you very much, General. How are you? How's life treating you? Where you at? For the people that don't know you, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name you have already done, so I have to do it again. Former player, retired about almost 10 years ago. 41 at the moment, and life is treating me really well. Very busy as well with two kids and a job at the moment at FIFPro. FIFPro is the union, the worldwide union, so to say, that represents the players. So yeah, life is treating me really well. I'm happy with where I am now.
As you said, you've been retired for almost 10 years. You've been in the game. You've been part of the game. You saw the game grow. When you look at women's football today, do you see a sport that has finally arrived or an industry that is only just the beginning of the structure to structure itself?
Yeah, it really depends on where you're looking, I guess. For me, as like passionate about women's football, I would say we're at the beginning. But of course, in parts of especially Europe and the US, there are countries that are arriving, but also not there yet. But there are many more countries that are still amateur and don't have the facilities or the professional conditions they should have. So I would say we're still very much at the beginning.
Can you tell us a little bit? Because I want to take you back to your early days. Where did your love of football come from? Because I know where my love of football came from, but I want to know about your love of football, your origin in Holland. Tell me a little bit about that, please.
It was actually a very special story. My mom was a football player as well. She played at the highest level back then. It was not as big as now, and even there was not even a proper league when she started. And she also played for the national team, so I was sitting on the bench when she was playing, so I could not go around it, and so the love for the game was there when I was very young already.
So your mom was playing for the national team. You did play for the national team. So when you started playing international, I'd say internationally for the national team, what did you actually had to build? Because the opportunities for women football, I guess, for you weren't as big, but I can imagine for your mom. So what did you have to build in terms of that?
Um, well, it was very hard because even if you would do a study or something next to it, the schedule was not really built to do something next to it. But we're not earning any money, so we had to. So it was constantly also finding a job that allowed me to play. Um, but also it was a lot of investing because I can remember that when our national coach at that time said like if we want to get somewhere, if we want to reach the bigger tournaments, we need to invest. So I remember that we are on Monday and Tuesday. We were often in Zeist in the Netherlands, where the federation is placed. Um, so we had to train on Monday and Tuesday there, and we slept one night there. So I could only kind of work 2 3 days a week, and then you needed to make sure you earned enough money to also make a living. So I guess for the first couple of years, it has been a lot of investment from really from out of my passion to play football. There was no youth development pod, so you came from an amateur team into the national team, and you all were also were playing in an amateur environment. So yeah, it's a huge difference from where we are now. Yeah.
You know, the environment you grew up in, or you grew up in as a football player, do you think that based on the reality back then, did that create a stronger resilience in life in general compared to what's the way it's been run today?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I mean, we were very quickly able to juggle a lot of balls. I mean, if soon as you stepped on the field, even when you were tired from working all day or not sleeping a long night because you had a game the day before, you always had to be ready. And also that fire in you that you want to perform, you want to be the best, that was there. So I think, yeah, especially now where I am today, I feel that that helps me a lot. And also in my work, I'm very like goal driven, and if I um, have a new project, I'm like ready to go for it. And sometimes, of course, that's not always the best thing because sometimes you need to zoom out a bit. But I think, yeah, the way I do things, it's always with the full 100%, and I know how it is to do a lot of things at once, and yeah, to deal with that.
When you look back now, do you think that your generation, because you're part of a generation that's done a lot, do you think that your generation laid literally the foundation for what women's football is today?
Yeah, definitely. Um, I think I was around 2021 when we got like a professional league. It was called a professional league, but still an amateur conditions. But we got to play for my first club was AZ in Alkmaar. So there were clubs like Utrecht, not the big ones yet, no Ajax, PSV, etc. That came later, but then the league started to at least work under a professional name, and it was easier for the branding and also to sell women's football, I guess. Um, so that yeah, that definitely helped in building that foundation. But then also um, the league started in 2007 2008, and in 2009 we went to the European Championships for the first time. So that step already had a lot of influence in the way we were developing ourselves. So yeah, for the first time in the history of the Netherlands, we went to a big tournament, and that was followed with going to a World Cup and even to Olympic Games, which I unfortunately was not there. But it meant, yeah, I think the first steps were made for that. Yeah.
You've experienced different experience in football, different leagues, and in your career, what I mean, what each country, what did each country taught you about the game? Because we all, we've been everywhere in the world, but especially on the women's side, for your sake, your perspective, what did you learn from different experiences from different countries?
Well, I played most of the time in the Netherlands, and I think, as we all know, the Netherlands is really built on playing nice football that attracts audience and people want to watch. So I think there I created the right basics or the base for being a player. But when I moved to Germany, I really learned to, yeah, go over my boundaries, kind of like, I don't know if you know, if the German game is very tough, and the way they train. It's when I got there, I thought they are crazy, they are insane. Like the things we had to do, like 2 hours of training and then go run a 5 kilometers as fast as you can, and then training in the morning at 8, and then like twice after game day, etc. Like there, I learned really not to be thinking constantly of how I felt. And I remember in the Netherlands, I was always before a game, okay, how do I feel? And then I was like, oh, my legs feel tired. And that went in my head, like, my legs are tired. What now? Like, and then I didn't perform well. And in Germany, I learned to like let go. I was not even thinking before a game anymore. I was just, as soon as I went, and yeah, I didn't felt any pain or whatever anymore. And I still, now I'm playing at an amateur level. I try to still play once in a while, and I see, if I see the youngsters that train every week, like twice a week, they play every week, and I'm still sometimes running harder than them, and then it still brings that mentality in my head that just go and don't think about it. And yeah, I feel that in Germany that really helped me, and I think I always said that when I played in Germany, when they would combine the Netherlands with Germany to have this like football skills, and then also, yeah, that training mindset, that then no one can beat you.
Yeah, would it be the model that if you were a coach or in charge of decision making, would it be the perfect model for you to create for women's football between Germany and Netherlands? Would it be that?
Yeah, it should be an ideal balance, because in Germany they train very, very hard, where if you are more sensitive to injuries, that could make you or break you. I think I'm very lucky with the way I've built, but I have seen players coming into Germany and kind of ruined their knees or whatever. So I think there should be a balance, but I think it's also very good to sometimes think you think you're tired, but you can do more, and learning that that's extra piece is there. And then also, I think that probably makes you the better player than some of the players on the field, if you can bring that extra piece. And then if you have the skills, of course, yeah, I think that's the ideal balance for me, definitely. But not as 7 days a week as crazy as they were sometimes in Germany.
Yeah, but for me, when I hear you talking, it goes down to the psychology of the
Yeah.
player, of the player in general. Women's football has historically required players to be able to fight, because you were talking about, for me, you were talking about psychology, the way you think, your mindset. How has that struggle shaped the mentality of women's football players? Because when you have to fight, and I'm only guessing, that shaped you, like the way you just explained. You had to learn the hard way, so that makes the person you are today. In terms of women's football psychology, because you've been through that, how do you think that has shaped the way women's football is today?
I think it's different in every country, actually, and also different for every player. I mean, I was not the most technical one. It was not, if you saw me play, it was not a show. It was easy. Uh, Go past your opponent 1 versus 1. No special things. Just using my things I was best in. And I think it's different for everyone and also different in every country. But I guess if you are in women's football, especially in the lower ranked countries, yeah, you have to build that in order to at least stand a chance to the countries that are very far away from some countries right now. I mean, we all seen the developments in England and the way they offer world class facilities to those players. And yeah, if you have to step on the field and you're from, say, the Netherlands, I mean, we are doing a good job, but we're still far away from them. Then you have to bring a certain mentality in order to stand a chance.
Do you think because of that, female player develop, I would say, a different type of leadership mentality because of that journey that you guys had to go through or are still going through?
Yes, I think women in general have a different kind of leadership. But I think, yeah, it definitely helps in the way. The funny thing in women's football is, or the beautiful thing is that we all want the same. And even if you would say name a player like Lucy Bronze, she has it all. I mean, she has a good salary, she has the facilities, but they still want more. And not only for their country, she also looks out for the countries that are not there yet. And she still is very much involved in the development of women's football. And I think I can name so many clubs and players. And I think we're more of a collectively looking at how we want to build this game, where it's maybe in men's football now a bit more, yeah, self-centered. All the clubs want their like to make more money and to perform better than the other. And of course, that's happening in women's football as well. But I think the focus is less on that because we have still such a long way to go. There's still so much to do that we're really, as a collective, like focused on how can we do this together instead of how can we all do this by ourselves. Yeah, and I think that makes also is also a part of leadership, not oh, it's me going up. No, I'm taking everyone up with me. And I think it's more, yeah, more doing it together and want to create this connection and team effort kind of
Yeah,
makes sense.
no, no, it makes total sense. So if I follow you, this kind of leadership, group leadership, is one of the components to help you to help the women's football business to develop. Because we all know, and me and you know it, the business of women football is developing, I think, quite significantly. Not quick enough for a lot of you, but okay, how it's all about women's football is attracting investment now, sponsorship, global attention more than before. What needs to happen for that growth to become sustainable? In your opinions?
And I think that's the hardest part. It's not only investors investing in the potential of women's football. We also need to find the way in creating a sustainable environment. But I think before we can do that, we also need to have a certain baseline in women's football. And I think now we don't really have that. There is such a big difference in even in Europe. If I look at Eastern and Central Europe countries, they are very much very amateur. They don't have anything coming close to yeah, a formal contract or proper facilities. So if you speak of Europe, yeah, you have England, you have Italy, um, Spain, not even. Maybe Barcelona, of course, is doing good, but if you look at the rest of the league, it's not all that great. And that's the same with France and also in the Netherlands. I think that the top clubs are growing, but the bottom is very much very vulnerable. And I think in order to grow the game sustainably, we need to make sure this button is going with us, and the game is like, yeah, attractive more globally and also in Europe, attractive in the whole of Europe and not just in a few parts. Yeah, and I also know in Italy they have invested a lot, but they also still struggling in how to not even only give out the money, but also receive back that money in. So I think that's still something we're very much struggling with.
And do you think that in order to grow the game again, the business of the women's football on the long term, clubs are treating women's football as an extension of men's football? Do you think that harms the women's football development in terms of business?
Yeah, I find that also a hard question, but because in the end, I think how we are existing now, it's also because of the men's clubs. We are using their commercial brands, their fans, maybe even. But I think we can separate it a bit more, like focus on the women's side more on a different audience and on a different way of presenting your women's team. Um, so yeah, I think it helps us definitely because I think without them we would not existing right now, especially not of a lot of the top leagues aren't. But I think it should be a balance, and I think in a lot of clubs as well, it's for example, sponsors are coming in only for the men's team or for like the club in general. And I think finding sponsors for women's teams, I think you can look maybe in a different direction or a different area. So I guess that could make the women's side a bit stronger because now if the men's side is not doing very well, then the first thing they cut is the women's game and is the women's team. So we're very much dependent on okay, they are doing good, we're doing good. They are not doing so good. Okay, now we're doing also less good. But I think if we would separate that a bit in the club in general, that you are having your own sponsorships, your own income, that you're a bit more stable and it doesn't really matter what happens on the men's side. Um, but I think without them, we would not be where we are right now. I mean, the league in England is going on only men's clubs. There's just one, I think, one club that is only one female club. We have also one female club, but the other clubs are all connected to male clubs. So I think we need them, but we can brand both of them differently.
You see, on business side again, where do you think is the biggest opportunity today in terms of women's football business? Is it the media rights? You just touched on it, and I want you to just go a little bit deeper. The media right, the investment, or maybe the youth development? Because for me, I have a soft spot for youth development, but for you being an expert, where is the biggest opportunity?
No, I think definitely in youth development, that's already we're seeing the difference already. Because, like I said, I didn't have that pathway. I was just in an amateur club, and nowadays, girls in the Netherlands can start training at Ajax, PSV, Feyenoord, or the other professional clubs. And if you start at a younger age, really understanding that professional environment, it creates better mentality, but also skills. If you are starting younger to learn about football, of course, that is like a big step um, in your development because I probably missed out about 10, maybe even more years in my development if I would have started in a professional environment when I was younger. And I think now you see the difference in quality already coming, and they are more prepared for a professional environment because they have been in that for a very long time. And it's not that you just like start into like a first team and out of a sudden they went from amateur to professional. So I think that already is a huge difference. And then for me, the second thing is of course investment, and countries are already showing that if you invest, the opportunity and the potential is there. I mean, I mentioned now a couple of times, but like you see England, and you see Barcelona, you see the Italian league also their national team like um, reached the Euros and the World Cup. They came way further than in the past because of their development in their league. So you see, if you invest, it has potential. Um, but I think that's the hardest part. How do we get to see people like to that they see the potential and the fun in the women's game and not look at it the same way as men's football? I think that's often the biggest problem.
So I think it's fair to say, is that one of the reasons when you talk about development, the youth development, that you went from player to leader, that is that one thing that motivates you to go from maybe to coaching and then to be in governance? Is that this youth development something that maybe you didn't have that you wanted to, I don't know, bring to the younger generation? Is that what motivated you?
Yeah, that's that's an interesting story as well because I think when I stopped playing, I didn't have a clue. I had no idea there was so much there, and of course, often it says like, "Hey, you don't want to be a coach, like stay close to a team." That's often what they're asking, what they're saying. So that's maybe in your head, and I didn't really saw myself doing that. So for me, it costed a lot of time and investment also to figure out what I wanted to do. And then when I moved from Germany back to the Netherlands and the VVCS, it's the Dutch union, asked me if I wanted to work for them. I was very much interested because that was my first job, really diving into the development of women's football and being involved in it. And actually, there is where the love um, in this kind of area of football came from. And yeah, from working in the Dutch Union, I ended up at FIFPro, and now I'm working with our members, and those are the unions worldwide, and the players globally. So now I'm more invested in like the bigger picture of football. So it was not something that motivated me. I really didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew that I wanted to stay in an area where I still can develop the women's game. Um, yeah, and that it ended up like this. Yeah, I'm really happy that it did, and I'm really happy where I'm right now.
Being part of this governance organization, representation of players, having an impact, being able to make a difference, how important is it for the players themselves? What does that actually give them going forward and in women's football development?
Yeah, I think one of the first things I did when I started, for example, in the Dutch Union, is contacting players because in women's football there's not often the idea of, oh wait, we have a voice. Oh wait, maybe if we come together, we can bring something bigger and stronger to because one voice is one voice, but 100 voices is stronger. um, and I think what I try to do is like contact the captains. That's where I started, just to talk to them. Hey, what's missing in the league? Hey, what are your challenges? How can we help? And I try to be like this voice between them and the federation to at least speak to them. Like, this is what they're facing. How can we change this? How can we help them? And sometimes you can't, because that's just a bit of the development we have to go through. And I think that's the hard part as well. If you're developing, it's a good thing, but it also brings a lot of struggles and challenges for the players. And I think that's where I started to create more of an idea of, hey, you are a player, you are the product of this game. Without you, there is no game, and you have a voice. And nowadays in the Netherlands, they have voting rights, so that's huge, and they don't have that in many countries. But I think still that collective part of players coming together, it's so strong because you can say something in the newspaper by yourself, but if they say, hey, wait, all the captains over the world have said it, it's a way stronger message. And I think that's what we're creating in FIFPro, but that's also what the unions are creating on their domestic levels. So yeah, I think that's very important, especially in women's football, since we have so much to do still, and there's such a long way to go.
General, when you look 10 years ahead now, I want you to imagine within 10 years, what would define success for women's football globally for you?
Yeah, in my head, I want to say we're all professional players, but that's just not realistic. And that's also because I'm working on a project with the members, raising our game. It called, for me, it's at least creating a minimum standard for all the players all over the world. So they might have, it's not even only salary, at least they have access to insurance, medical health, um, the right facilities to be a professional player. And of course, in the end, I want players to have an income at least on the hours they are putting into it, um, and not constantly have to juggle everything. That would be my ideal in 10 years. I hope that every player has at least a certain minimum rights and protection. I think for me, the protection part is, yeah, that's the hardest thing. Like players not being insured, having major injuries and have to pay it for themselves. And that's not always possible. Those kind of things, not having the medical uh, staff around. Yeah, those things for me are very worrying because, yeah, I mean, as a person, as a human being, you should have rights. But ideally, of course, in the end, we're all, yeah, at least professional.
Okay, last question for you, Claudia. When people talk about the generation that helped the development of women's football to help to build this modern women's football game, how do you hope, or I would say, yeah, what do you hope your contribution represent? What do you hope people remember about this generation, which you are part of?
You mean what we have laid down like in the past or in the future?
In the future, when people will talk about, okay, you know what, one day we were not professional, there's been a group of person, a group of strong women that helped to develop the modern women's football. Specifically, what do you hope they remember out of this?
Oh, that's a hard one, I would say, especially because the world of football is so big, and I don't know if my name will stand out. But yeah, in the Netherlands, I at least hope that they were aware and they saw that I was very motivated to help them make change, to make sure that their voices were heard, and that they were more than just players, and that their voices matters. I think that's certainly something I hope for. Um, yeah, and globally, I think the same. Being aware that we were there to give them a voice, to make them aware of their rights. It sounds very union focus, but yeah, that's where I am right now. So that's also where I'm working at the moment. So, but yeah, I hope that that's something that stays with them, and also that they give that back to the younger generation, because often it's older players that are focused on the development, and the youngers are always a bit more like what can happen to me, and not always that involved yet. But I hope that's something that we can continue to give to the younger generation. Just keep on bringing that passion in trying to develop the women's game, and also not being focused just on what's developing in your area, but like how can we develop the bigger picture.
Yeah, I think that's a good, not even good or bad, but that's realistic. And once again, and you know that, I think that's part of this generation have a responsibility to educate people, really to, because you're moving, as you said, there's a room for improvement. You're looking at the journey where women's football was a couple of years ago, where it is now. There's room for improvement, and I think by having more people like you, very committed in the union and on the global stage, is going to become kind of the norm, and all the fights that you had to go through, it's going to worth something, because Rome hasn't been built in a day, but the way you moving, for me, that didn't know a lot about women's football.
But I teach you now, right?
Now you're teaching me, and that's what I'm expecting, because
Yeah.
that's the way people can learn and appreciate it, by being taught by teachers, because you're kind of a teacher, and that's what I find what you do amazing, because it takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of like putting, I don't know, full process to separate emotions from facts, from what's been, and being aware about what's happening. But I just wanted to say, in front of it, like, you doing it ever so well. So keep fighting the same way and keep teaching us, because we need to learn. We
No,
need
I
to
agree
learn.
with you. Yeah. No, and it's what you said. Like you said, I'm teaching you, and of course, it's very important to not only teach the woman. Yeah, we need to teach the man in the decision making chairs about women's football as well, and also to understand where we come from and to see the potential if you would invest in it. Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
agree with that.
And I'm sure it's gonna be done like that. Claudia, I'm just gonna call you Claudia for the
Yeah.
rest of
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you very much for sharing your insight and being so open. And because I think that's what we need. People, the world needs it. My girls, my children needs it. My girls, even maybe my mom, my sisters, just to be aware about where you are and how women's football is developing. So thank you very much, and I'm sure your program is going to be amazing. For those of you that want to follow Claudia, we're going to put that in a caption. You need to support. You need to keep getting behind them, because that's what we need. Thank you very much. It was Claudia for Women's Football on Football Business TV, where the game gets down to business. In the meantime, guys, take care of yourself, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.